Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
Recurring guest Tom Segura is with us. Tom, last time you were here, it was actually, I checked it out, episode 74 of the podcast, and you were on here with your good buddy, Bert Kreischer. Now
Wait, last time?
Yeah, it was in August of 16, I believe, when I looked it up. It was yourself, Bert Kreischer. Every time now I think I'm calling him Bert Chrysler because of you.
That's accurate.
Yeah, and the title of the podcast was Who is Fatter?
Who is fatter? Yep. Well, now we have an answer.
I think this was shortly before you guys did the big weigh-in at Joe Rogan's studio.
Well, the weigh-in was January 2nd, so that was probably, that was
way before.
5 months. Yeah. So, but I mean, it was before. It was when the torturing each other started. It was in that era, so it was like summer, June, July, August is when we were doing, and then the challenge to see who could lose weight, I think, started in September or October. So that's that was before we actually started losing weight. But he's definitely fatter, just so you know.
Has he? Now I've heard Joe Rogan say multiple times on his podcast that he's like, well, yeah, Tom looks great, man. Tom looks amazing. He's like, no, Bert pretty much put it all back on.
I mean, I don't know the actual numbers. I know he doesn't. I mean, I know Burnt doesn't look good, if that's what you're asking. He just, but Bert goes hard in the paint, man. Like there's no like downtime for that guy. He's all systems go. I'm saying on having fun all the time. Like I'm not really a fucking big boozer. I'm not even a boozer really at all. I have a drink. Maybe socially, or I can go a month without having any glass of wine, liquor, beer, anything. I mean, Bert just goes.
How are you guys so close then?
How are we so close?
Yeah, how are you such good friends when it seems like you have your lifestyles seem very different?
I think we just enjoy we enjoy each other, and we enjoy each other's differences. So like I like being around like some comics. Personalities, they get intimidated by a big, like loud guy like Bert. They get like, oh my god. But like I've always enjoyed him. Like he makes me laugh. He's always been fun. I don't feel threatened by the fact that he's this larger than life. I enjoy it, So like my natural thing is to kind of be laid back and quiet, basically. So to me, it's like I like being around someone like that. I just enjoy him,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to. I wasn't planning on talking about Bert to start this off, really. But it does confuse me. Not confuse me, but I wonder, like, when the cameras are off, the mics are off. He talks about his wife, Leanne, I believe is her name.
Yep. And yeah.
So she has to be like the most understanding lady on the planet.
100%. She is the most understanding and even-keeled, and knows she has a maniac for a husband, and she adores him. But she knows, she's a very patient, compassionate person. She has a man-child at home.
That's what makes him. He tells her probably, I got that Mickey Mantle gene.
Oh my God, I'm sure the amount of bullshit she's heard over these last 15 years is just, you can't even wrap your head around it. The amount of stories.
Oh man, and his stories, I love when he tells stories. He's like, well, this might not be completely true. Other people have different recollection of this story.
Oh my God. Look, I've been with him where I've told him a story of something that just happened to me, and then we'll go somewhere, we'll be hanging out with someone, and Bert will be like, do you know what just happened to Tom? And then as he's telling the person the story, I go, I just told you the story. That's not accurate. And he's like, well, that's the way I heard it in my head. Like, you just added all kinds of shit. He goes, it's better that way.
Why
so
not?
He just creates things.
Yeah, I love. Oh man, what a unique individual. You said you're not a big boozer. Were you ever like big into that scene?
Not regularly. Like I'll go hard a couple days a year for like special outings. You get together and maybe have a bunch of drinks one night. I was never like, I'm gonna do that Thursday and Friday and Saturday, and it's just not. I'm just not wired that way, man. I just never been big into it. But like, you know, if it's vacation or like if someone had a party, I'm gonna have a few drinks. But it's nothing I'm gonna do every night.
Well, that's like comedy seems like it's different now. I don't know from when you got into now, but it's like you look at all these guys. A lot of the older dudes are sober now. It's almost like rock stars. They get older and they get sober.
Well, they went fucking super hard, dude. Like they went real crazy, and they weren't just drinking. Like we're talking coke days, and like, you know, that was really prevalent when they were coming up. A lot of coke in the clubs, and you don't see. I mean, I know a few guys that do coke, but you don't see it around really that often. You don't hear a lot of people going for it. So weed is prevalent, you know, and weed lends itself to comedy because makes a lot more sense to smoke weed and start riffing or laughing about stuff than fucking geeked out on coke. So, you know, I mean, if you want to be up till 5 a.m. or whatever, but I think it makes sense that weed is really the choice for most comics.
Well, and all of you are out there in California right now. And California recently passed the law to where it's recreational. Has that taken effect yet?
No, I mean, I think the law is in place in terms of how the law enforcement would treat you, but the legal like recreational dispensaries I don't think they open until 2018. So there's still medical dispensaries, but there's not the recreational ones yet. But I think they still would, like, if a cop found, you know, a joint on you, I don't think they ticket you anymore. That's what they used to do, is just ticket you.
Oh, okay, so they're not really taking guys in unless they have a massive amount to intend to distribute.
Yeah, I think you have to have over an ounce on you for stuff like that, or I might have the amount wrong, but you got to have some weight on you. You can't just have a bag for yourself, and they're not going to pull you in for that.
So I don't know if you're aware or not. I think this might have been a couple days ago. You probably are not. Bill Burr was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said something about you. He said, I just stare at Tom, and I just want to get inside his head sometimes. He said something about he's eerily quiet at times to where I just want to get inside and see what's going on up there.
Yeah, somebody told me about that and sent me the clip. I listened to it. I think we have an ongoing who's a bigger psycho argument going on. I think it's definitely Bill. Here's all I know. Bert is fatter and Bill's a bigger psycho. That guy's out of his mind. I know his argument, his defense would be like, oh, you're saying because I'm a hothead, because, he gets all worked up real fast. He goes, but I'm actually, that's just a big bark, but I'm not real crazy. But Bill's plenty crazy. I mean, you get him started on his conspiracy theories, and you tell me that's not a fucking crazy man talking. He's like, you got to keep your money in your mattresses? I'm like, what? He's like, the banks, they're run by fucking sociopaths. You don't have a debit card? And I'm like, okay, I'm crazy? You're telling me to not have a fucking debit card? He's crazy.
Well, he thinks that he probably thinks you are like the quiet psycho that he never says anything. And it's like, hey, you got to be aware of that guy. Don't ever worry about the big loud guy that's trying to be tough. You're the scary guy waiting in the bushes to pounce when time is right.
I mean, what do you think? You know both of us.
I don't know. I mean, I know Bert. I don't know Bill Burr like you do. Man, I don't know. Bill might be right.
You think I'm a psycho?
It's possible. We'd have to ask your wife, maybe.
Come on, man. You've been to my house.
You're right. I've had dinner with you guys. I saw your son.
That seemed like a psycho to you?
Possibly, yeah.
God damn it.
Nah. I mean, no, you know what was fun? What was cool to see when I got to have dinner with your wife and you and hang out at the house for a while, and then talk to your wife when she came on the podcast too. Like, yeah. She's obsessed with you, man. What are you doing?
What do you mean?
She loves you. Hopefully everyone's wife loves it, but she's like, oh, I just love that guy. She just looks at you like so proud at all times. I feel like
that's so sweet. She's the best, man. I'm so lucky. She told me the other day that she's like, I just adore you. And she compared us to the dogs, because we have one dog that's super affectionate and always looking, just wants you to pet her, and then the other dog's kind of like much more temperamental. So she was like, I'm the loving dog, and you're the whatever dog. I'm like, whatever. That's such bullshit. But she is the best, man.
So she just, it's probably like when you have a really, really tough coach that's always yelling at you and going crazy.
Yeah.
You're like, all you want to do is the one time that he like pats you on the back and says, hey, good job, kid. You're like, oh my God, you feel like you can conquer the world. That's all she wants from you.
I'm not fucking withholding love and affection. I'm not yelling at her all day like that coach. But yeah, I guess you could liken it to that. What about you and I met your wife. You guys came to that show with her dad, right? Your father-in-law.
Correct.
And was your sister-in-law too there? Or?
No, my good buddy Jonathan Butnick came along. He's a huge Tom Segura fan. Lives in L.A. too. He probably stalks you. Probably creeps on you wherever you go.
Really?
Nah, but he's a big comedy fan.
Wait, what? I think also when you have children, you're up to number 4 now. By the way, are we done here? Are we gonna have more?
I mean, if you give me a shot, yeah, we will have a number 5 quickly. But no, I think we're done, man. I'm searching for doctors, I guess, to get clipped.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I mean, most likely. We have 4 now. I think that's definitely it. I don't want to put my wife through that.
Your 4-year-old is like eerily reminiscent of you. I mean, that's crazy. That's like a little AJ, right?
Yeah, a little bit, man. He definitely is. And then what's crazy is my third, my son who's 16 months now. People say he looks and they feel like he acts like me too. He just kind of hangs out and kind of observes everybody, and he's not really as loud and outgoing as my 4-year-old. So I don't know, man. My kids are all they got like pasty white skin like me, and they have light hair. My wife is hoping my fourth that was born a couple weeks ago has dark hair right now. And my wife's just hoping that he holds on to it. She always said, man, I hope one of our kids takes some kind of physical traits after her, because all my kids are super pale with light hair just like me.
Just like you, yeah. Well, you told her I got the better DNA.
Got that Mickey Mantle gene, right?
That long strand DNA, man.
What does that mean?
What does anything that comes out of that guy's mouth mean? It's just nonsense. He thinks because his whole thing is like, I don't need to prepare. I mean, guys like this. Like there's guys that like, you're probably the kind of guy that's like, here's the game plan for the week, right? And like you're studying your book, you're studying film. They're like, here's this guy's tendencies. When he puts his foot over here, it's gonna be a fucking pass. And then there's guys who are like, I'll just show up on Sunday, man. And like that is Bert. So Bert thinks that like if you could just show up on Sunday, because you're gifted, he's that guy.
That doesn't lend itself well to comedy? I mean, that's the persona you want to give. Like, oh, I'm just up here kind of riffing, but you have hours, thousands of hours of material you have to work out before you take it to the stage or you take it to a special.
Yeah, I think that like his. I mean, I'm speaking for him right now. I think that he's much more of like, let it happen in the moment. Not that you're not preparing that way, but some comics are like super calculated, about like, this is when I say this, and it goes before this joke because this is how, and they structure their sets. They're very meticulous about how to structure a set. Bert's a much looser guy, so he likes it to be like in the moment, react, go up there with like barely a plan, and I mean you still have your the resources to talk about whatever, but I think he feels better keeping it loose. That's what he thrives in, that environment. And then wherever the feeling takes him, he goes there. More like a jazz session, whereas opposed to like some people are much more like, no. It starts with this and it goes here and then it ends with this,
What does it mean when a comic says they write on stage?
It just means you take an idea. I'm going to talk about, mowing my lawn. And instead of sitting down and going like pen to paper and writing your jokes about grass clippings and the smell of this and how you rolled over some turds that you cut up and like have your jokes really well planned out, you go, Oh yeah, today that was crazy when I mowed the lawn. I'm gonna go on stage and talk about it and just see what comes out of my mouth. So you kind of go up there with a general idea, and then on stage the jokes come out of you because it's basically because of the pressure of being up there and in the moment in front of an audience that you just spew it out, as opposed to writing pen to paper, you know.
So which one are you?
Well, I'm definitely a writer on stage, but I feel like I should write more on paper. Like, in other words, I feel like a great thing is to have a balance, and I've done much more of just writing on stage. I mean, my last 3 hours were all written on stage.
Okay.
You know?
So you went up, like, you're working like 15-minute sets, like, say, at the Comedy Store, and you went
Yeah.
up with like a premise, and then that's how you developed all this new material?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just go up there like, you know, I'm trying to think, man. I went up there with like, like this guy, you know, the guy yelling at in the movie theater. I just went up there, told that story, and then you discover that there's beats and moments in there to emphasize, and you keep going in there, and all of a sudden you have like a 5-minute bit about it, right? So you just go like, oh, I just figured it out on stage. I didn't sit down and go, here's what happened, and write down all the things. I just talked about it on stage. And then right now it's like, yeah, right now I have like I don't know, it's probably a 75-minute show when I do like a you know, a big show, and that was all written on stage. But I do feel like there's a great benefit to writing pen to paper. It just takes a level of discipline and focus to do it. Because what happens is when you write on stage, you just, you know, and things work out for you. You're like, you know, I don't have to do that. And the truth is, you don't have to write pen to paper, but there's definitely, you're going to find things by physically writing it out, that you're not going to find off the top of your head. That's why I feel like I should do it more.
That has to be, like, how scary is it though to go up there when you're just kind of freeballing it, and you go up with maybe a few premises, but you figure, we'll see how it kind of plays itself out while on stage. Like, isn't that a pretty scary thing?
To a degree, yes, but I think that's why you develop things. Like, if it wasn't at all scary, you know, that mechanism of like saying, you know, something funny just wouldn't be there. Like, there's like this unspoken pressure to make it funny, right? Like you're like, I gotta say something. So that pressure of not knowing where you're gonna go with it is what generates something funny, I think. So there's a little bit of fear that actually benefits you in that moment.
I get it. So what happened when Kramer went on stage and went crazy with all the racial slurs? Did he have a premise? Do you have anything written out? He wasn't even a stand-up. Like, I wonder what he was doing on stage.
Well, I think he did have a stand-up past. Like, he had he was like somebody that did stand-up. He did like experimental kind of weird stuff. I hold the opinion that was really more about anger and not about racism. When you're on stage and somebody mocks you or like disrespects the fact that, you know, what you're doing up there, in other words, like they're not paying it, they're just being loud, you know, people having their loud conversations at their table as opposed to watching the show. Almost every comedian that's done it for any amount of time has experienced that. And it's not unusual to get angry about it. And the angrier you get, like if you really, like you try to keep yourself from getting super angry and you try to be funny, right? But if you happen to miss that turn if it's just like a bad night and you're like, you don't make a joke out of it, you take it personally and you start getting legit angry about it, you can go down a horrible path. Now, I never did what he did as far as making it racial, but like I've had a woman totally like just being belligerent, yelling, and like I told her to be quiet, and then I just got angrier and angrier, and I've been like, you know, you fucking pig, and like really lost my shit on it. And I'm not proud of it, but I'm saying I feel like what everybody who doesn't do stand up doesn't see in that tape of Kramer yelling the N-bomb at this guy is they're like, oh, he's just like, it's the racism exposed. I don't think that he's so racist exposed. I think he would have said whatever is the worst thing you could say to whoever that was, depending on who they were. In other words, if it were a woman, a white woman, he would have been like, you fucking cunt, and just would have gone crazy like that. If it were an Asian guy, he would have dropped every Asian slur. You know what I mean? So the fact that it was a black guy who was fucking up his set and like talking, and he had told him to shut up and da da da. He went there because in that moment he's saying, I want to hurt this person. I want to say the meanest and most hurtful thing to this person. So in that split second, if it's a black guy, he's going to say an N-bomb, right? I'm not trying to defend it or justify it. I just think that is the actual real thinking of how that went. It is I want to be hurtful to you because I'm so defenseless and like exposed at this moment. You know, it's like if you're in an argument with somebody and they cut you deep, you want to cut back as hard as you can, and that's when you say things you regret, right? So it's like that's how I see that moment. It's not really about race to me. It's more about anger.
Yeah, has he been back on stage since then?
I don't know. I mean, I've never seen him since then. I actually saw him 2 weeks before then. Before that incident, which is, I mean, it is years ago now, right? It's got to be like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember he was talking about Jews. So,
really?
Yeah, and then he actually mocked somebody who had gone up before him, which is really, again, like I think this is like super anger stuff, but like he was mocking another comic's set, which is like, it's unheard of to do that. He was like this guy talking about ball. I remember somebody was talking about their balls, and he was like, that's what we're doing now. Like there's all these things going on. Like he was being a comedy critic on stage about the previous comic stand-up and how it was like below his standards. And I was sitting in the back like, what in the fuck, man? Like, and the other thing is like, if you're gonna do that, you better come with some great stand-up. You know what I mean? Like if you're up there and you're like, that last guy sucked, which is really crazy to do, then you can't just be up there talking about how that last guy sucked. You better like also show us how you're great, right?
Yeah, it's like, why he's like the holier than thou comic because he had a successful TV show.
I think he was in, I mean, we're going back a long time. I think whatever was going on with him in that time period, it was, was bad. And he was having a difficult time with it because, I mean, that set that I saw, like I said, was bizarre. And he was also angry. He was very angry up there talking about other comic sets and blah, blah, blah. And then, like 2 weeks later was that Laugh Factory thing. And no, I have not seen him ever in a club since then.
Well, if you watch, I've seen some of the like videos from outtakes of Seinfeld and all that, and I think he was always, even though he played that crazy, goofy character, and I'm not even a diehard Seinfeld guy by any means, but I've watched a lot of like the blooper reels when people are like breaking and they're laughing, they can't get through the lines. Like Kramer just getting frustrated on set. Like you can tell, like he wants them to get through their lines and like be a professional.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that kind of lines up with what we're talking about, Maybe he was just, I don't know him. Maybe he's just an angry dude, Because sometimes, like, with comics, you see the personalities are full range, man. Like, there's some very depressed comics, which a lot of people know about, and there's some angry guys. And, you see them as, oh, it's a funny guy. But the real person, sometimes is very, very different.
Yeah, that guy off stage is probably not a whole lot of fun when every time he takes the stage, he's an angry guy, like reprimanding the crowd and everyone around him.
Yeah. Reminds me a lot of Bert. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't take their shirts off like Bert Kramer didn't.
he told me, he's like, Bert goes, should I take my shirt off for my next special? And I go, absolutely. And he goes, why? I go, because if you do 2 specials with your shirt off, it is mandatory that you take your shirt off forever. And I want you to have to do that in your 60s and 70s so that, like, because otherwise people would, like, not know, like, they wouldn't know it's you, like, if I keep doing specials with a beard, I basically have to keep a beard, so that, like, at least somebody who will, like, be able to be like, oh, I recognize that guy. That's who that is. Mm-hmm. But, like, to have him be shirtless for decades is my goal. I'm trying to encourage him to do it.
When he's 70, man, that'll be awesome. If he's still up there doing it, which I'm sure he will be.
Yeah.
Take shirt off and then put your hat back on.
Take his shirt off and he's just all wrinkled and droopy and it's just like hanging and they're like, ugh. But he's like, I'm the machine.
Do they give sympathy laughs for that guy?
Oh my God. Yeah, I think they'll just kind of be like, all right, like kind of let's wrap it up with this guy. Yeah, they'll
You think he'll still be drinking at 70?
Come on, what kind of question is that?
My bad, yeah. Dumb question, you're right.
Yeah, that's like saying, you think you'll be sleeping when you're in your... Yeah, of course.
Now, what about, though, with all the podcasts and everybody has one and there's a lot of comedy ones out there, is it getting too saturated to where people love to talk about the art of comedy too much to where it's not even funny and it gets annoying and old?
I mean, I think the answer... I mean... Yes and no. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot. Everybody has a podcast. And the cool thing is, I think with everything, like with music, with stand-up, and just with podcasts, if you have something interesting going on, something good, it will separate itself. It just will find an audience. So I wouldn't put down the fact that there's a lot of podcasts. I also think podcasting as a whole is still in its infancy. I think it's going on an up, stream, very much so. Like that it's going to get much more popular. There's still a huge amount of the population that doesn't even know what it is. It doesn't. I mean, but now you're seeing, people who'd never talked about them are talking about them. Cars are coming with podcast apps on them. New cars, it's like, so it's becoming more mainstream. As far as the comedy thing is, yeah, I mean, it can be like, how many guys do you need talking about how to do comedy, right? But again, is there any harm in it? Not really. People just will tap out eventually of some of them. I mean, you're just going to have podcasts with a few hundred downloads. It's like, well, you're just, if you keep talking about the same thing all these other people are talking about, you're never going to separate yourself.
Yeah, I don't think that's what people, when they say, oh man, everybody's got a podcast. Yeah, I'm like, that's good. Everybody should have one, because then, as you say, like the cream will rise to the top to where it's on demand. Everything's on demand now. So it's great. I love when, I don't think there can ever be too many, because I get to go choose those ones which I want, and I can drop the ones who I feel like I'm not into anymore. So there should be 5 billion of them. It doesn't matter, because you're going to find what you like, and you can go download it, and it help. I mean, that's all day. I'm refreshing my podcast app and seeing who's got new good guests coming on. So it's like, why? I don't know why people try to knock if everyone wants one. I'm like, good, start it. If it's good, I'll download it. I'll subscribe.
I mean, I think the main thing is that if I were starting one now, you got to find an angle. You got to find a hook. If you're just like, me and my friends talk, it's like, okay. But I think if you find something interesting, maybe you look at like one of these more successful ones of recent years is My Favorite Murder, right? Mm-hmm. You know about that? There's 2 comics or 2 women host it, but like they found like such an interesting take on something that like what they're discussing and their approach to it, and I think that's also aside from it being good content, it's that they didn't just go, it's the 2 of us, like it's the 2 of us and we're great. Like it's they found an angle, and I think that's what, if I were starting a new one, that would be my approach. Like, let's find some hook in some way to separate ourselves, Unless you're a notable name. I mean, if you have a following in any way, you can get away with, hey, it's me, I'm great, and people are like, yeah, we know you. But if you're unknown, you got to find some angle.
Yeah, what is it? What is it like when you go in? Say you go in for like a pitch meeting, or I don't know if you go on auditions or whatever, or you're talking to some execs and they tell you, and you get talking about your podcast, like it's a big deal. You have tons of listeners. How do these like buttoned up suits feel about it when you're in meetings with them?
I mean, people they just talk about the success of it. So like that's that thing is like if your content is crazy, like ours is like, some of it's totally PC for the room. They don't get into like, oh, I heard you had that lady with cum on her face on your show. They just go like, oh, I heard there's a lot of downloads, and they just keep it in that. And you're like, yeah, it's popular right now. And they're like, that's great. So they suits just care about bottom line. They just care about numbers, right? So most of them will find something polite or complimentary to say, but the truth is they're just like, wow, there's a lot of people listening. That's crazy,
Yeah, it adds value to you. What about where are you at with your like acting and everything? I watched that. I don't know if it was what it was for, but the People's Mayor, where you played. I mean, it was awesome, man. What was that, and where are you at with your whole acting career?
Yeah, that was this guy Tom Ruprecht, who he was a Letterman writer for I think 14 years. He wrote that, and the idea was we would shoot a sizzle, right? Like it's like a mini pilot. So the People's Mayor was, obviously inspired by Rob Ford, the old Toronto mayor, where I was this crack-smoking lunatic mayor of Detroit. And we shot it, and we pitched it around, and we just didn't get anywhere with it. But it was really funny what he wrote, man. I mean, it really, really funny. And since then, I shot a pilot with Christina. That was a little while ago. I sold a pilot that I wrote with another guy that didn't get picked up, and then I'm still in that process, man. Like it's kind of like a never-ending thing where I'm out. I have a meeting today with another writer about another project. I wrote a short that I'm directing, so I'm still like I'm very much, excited by those things, and you're just always trying to swing for it, man. So it's like we'll see. You just never know. Like I'm always like pitching ideas and trying to make things happen, and we'll see where it goes.
So you sold a pilot. Like, what does that mean? Who bought it, and how does that happen?
I sold one to True TV. I don't know, I would say like a year and a half ago, where basically pitched them an idea. They said, let's do it. A writer, very funny guy named BJ Porter, and I wrote it, and we were like, this is what we want to make. And then they were like, no. But we had sold the idea. We sold the script to them. They paid us to write it. And then, I mean, the one before that was Christina and I, and it was like that one. They actually shot the pilot, and they were like, all right, here's money to shoot an episode. And then we shot it, and we gave it to them, and they were like, no.
What kind of money are we talking, though? For like, say the one you and Christina shot, they give you some money, and then what? You have to go find your own crew and everything?
No. I mean, they just go like, here's a budget, and somebody else handles all that. Like they go, we're budgeting. I mean, I'm making up numbers, but like, a few $100,000. You meet with other directors and producers, and they go, you think these people, you guys click? Could you work together? Yes. And then all that money negotiating is done between the network and the production company, so. And then they pay you, obviously, to be in it, to write in it, to produce on it. So
what about the pilot you said you sold? If that would have been picked up, do you then get back end points when it runs?
You get there's like a whole bunch of deal points, they call it. So like if that show had gotten picked up, I would have been an executive producer, a co-creator, a actor on it, a writer on it. So I would have gotten like basically different levels of pay for each thing. Like you have your acting fee, your writing fee, your producing fee, and then if you're not like an established like big time name, you don't get a lot of back end. I would have gotten like a little bit of thing, of like, if this were to go on and be very successful, I have some percentage, but it's honestly small when you're not. No, if you're already established, like you're a big name, if fucking, I don't know, like David Spade was like, I have a new show, and he pitches it, and like, he's like an established talent. He would be like given, a strong back end that if this is successful, you'll get, you'll see the rewards of it. But until you're well known, you don't usually get a big back end.
What about like movie roles? Do you actively audition for things?
Not a lot. I mean, I go out every now and again. The problem is, for me, for the last few years, is that I've just been gone all the time. Like, my touring has been so extensive that, I mean, there's a ton of times where I've been like, they're like, do you want to audition for this thing tomorrow? And I'll be like, I'm in Hartford right now. Like, don't you know that? You're my age. And then they're like, oh, yeah. And then I'll be like, can I do it on Monday? And they're like, no, they're only seeing people tomorrow. Shit like that. And honestly, this is just being totally honest. If you're like touring and I'm like in Green Bay, and then I'm in Chicago the next day, and then I'm in Milwaukee the next day, and then I fly home and they go, you have an audition tomorrow at 11. I'll be like, no, I'm not going. Like, I just got home and I'm home for like 48 hours. I'm not going on that. So that also, I know that sounds crazy, but honestly, like when you're doing week after week of touring like that and you have limited time home, you honestly just go like, I don't want to go out on that. I just don't.
I get it. I mean, don't people that just are actors, aren't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they somewhat jealous of what you comedians can do, because you're going to always be a comic, you can always write your own material, but actors are so reliant on the industry and continuing auditions, and it's so hard. You can go years without work.
Dude, and that I have friends that are actors, successful in that they work and have been. You've seen them in movies, you've seen them on TV shows, and they'll be like on a show that, a couple seasons, and then it ends, and then a few months later they're like, dude, I need to get some work. And you're like, well, but that show, they're like, yeah, the show ended. Like, I need another job. Which is, in stand-up, you're basically, you can work theoretically whenever you want, which is just, I mean, in terms of just having a job is obviously much better, So if I'm around more, I would like to do it. I mean, I'm honestly focused more on developing stuff than I am on just straight up auditioning. It's just not.
Are you only developing shows that you are going to act in, or are you do you do any of them that you're just creating and writing for?
Well, I want to be able to do both, So I am pitching one where I'm just pitching it as a creator, so I don't necessarily have to be in it. And that thing that I wrote and I'm directing, I'm not in it. I'm just making it,
What does it mean when you're directing? So, like, how do you're running everything, you're telling people how each shot's going to look, and you're talking to the actors?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's just that you see how the story should play out, and you have an idea of how you want the performances to go. So, I mean, you need a good DP, a director of photography, so that you can say, like, I want this shot to come in this way, and I want it to look like this. And a lot of times it's the collaboration that makes it interesting, because when they're good, they'll say something like, well, we could do it this way, and it could look like this. And then you go, oh, that's a better idea. So the collaboration with them is on that. And then you collaborate with actors in terms of saying, you have your idea of how you want them to perform in the material, and then, good actors will a lot of times just impress you with, you're like, oh man, I didn't even see it like that, and they, they'll bring something to it that you're not even expecting, right? And then it's just a back and forth. Well, they'll good actors also can give you, different reads. So they'll be like, you want me to do it this way? You want me to do it that way? And they give you a different version every time they do it,
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you watch House of Cards?
I fucking love it. I didn't start the new season because my wife is out of town, and that's one of the few shows that we 100% watch together. So it's very hard to show that level of restraint to wait.
I'm with you, man. I'm like 3-4 episodes into the new one now.
How is it?
It's great. I love it. And it's the same thing with my wife and I. It's one of the only shows that we both 100% are into and we're looking forward to. So I actually, if you talk about restraint, like she'll fall asleep and I'll turn it off. Like
wow,
kills me, man. Because I'm like, I want to. It's like literally, there's not really anything left other than that show that we both are all in. Everything else is like, it's usually one to the other that's into a lot more than the other person.
Yeah, we have a bunch of separate shows right now. I mean, our shows that we're watching together are Better Call Saul, The Americans, but she'll fall asleep on that and she'll be like, keep watching. So it's kind of like almost background to her in a way. Mm-hmm. But she'll just like, yeah, she'll go, I'll figure it out. I'm like, what? House of Cards, yeah. But then like I watched Fargo on my own. I watched Bloodline on my own. You watch Bloodline?
No, I don't even know about Bloodline. Where is it?
That is a Netflix series, original series.
Okay. Who's in it? Is anyone in it that I would know?
I guess I never watched Friday Night Lights, but one of the main actors from that, I think his name's Kyle Chandler. Okay. It's not like, huge stars. And I will say this, there's a few shows, I actually think House of Cards is like this, where the pilot isn't the most amazing. Like, I didn't love the pilot of House of Cards. I actually watched that first episode once, like, early on when the show was kind of came out, and then I didn't watch the show again. Like, I didn't watch episode 2. I just was like, I'm not into that. And somebody else was like, are you fucking serious right now? So I went back, watched it again. I still wasn't hooked. I was like, yeah, I remember this. And then it was like, by the second episode, I was intrigued more. And by the third, I was hooked. And I think Bloodline is like that, where like the first episode, you're like, okay, like this, I mean, it's interesting enough premise. I don't know how much I'll be into this, but it's like one of those where you give it another episode or two, and then, man, by like episode 3 or 4, you're like, oh, I'm in, like I'm fully in. And then as it progresses, it gets way more addictive.
Okay. Well, I forgot what about Veep? That's one that my wife and I are both into.
I never got into
legit. Did you start? No, have you started it?
No, I never started it.
I'm telling you, man. What Julie Louis-Dreyfus, is that how you say it? She is awesome, but her supporting cast are like people that I think you would recognize. Mm-hmm. Matt Walsh is one of them. I had him on here a long time ago. Their whole cast is amazing. The writing is awesome, and she is so good, man. She's hilarious.
Yeah, she's really funny, man.
Yeah, well, now though, do you watch all these shows when you're on the road by yourself?
Not really, man. Not really. I mean, I'm a news junkie too, so I watch a lot of news. I read the newspaper more than I read anything.
Like the physical newspaper, like the old school?
No, I have the digital subscriptions, so I read those. I mean, I'll pick up newspapers if I'm like, around. Like if I'm in a hotel and it's in the lobby, I'll definitely grab one. But on my phone, I have subscriptions to multiple newspapers, and I just read articles all the time. So I get consumed by it. Right
now, you're right in the middle, aren't you, of your No Teeth, No Entry tour?
Yeah, man. And let's see. Man, I was thinking about it. I think I've hit like 35 cities or something already. Wow. And next week on the 9th, my fall dates go on tour. And I was trying to guess how many I'm doing. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Another like 22 cities in the fall. And I still have this summer, I have about 15 cities. So altogether, I mean, it's like a 60-plus city tour.
Jeez. Is it mainly theaters?
Yeah.
So it's one show?
It varies. I mean, most of the time it's one show. You know, depending on the market and the size of the event. You know, like when I did Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Boston, Minneapolis, big like top 10 cities, we would add shows. But usually that's obviously directly correlated to the population. You know, so yeah, it just depends on the city and the size of the venue.
Can you make more money going in and doing one theater show compared to, say, 3 days worth of shows at a club?
I mean, I would say the simple answer is no. I mean, it all depends on it's a very simple math equation, but like to figure that out takes work, because money for theaters works like this. You're going to make less usually, because what size theater are we talking about? Because theaters vary in size. I mean, a small theater is probably considered 600-700 seats, right? You're basically a big club at that point. And then there's 1,000-seat theaters, 1,500-seat theaters, 2,500-seat theaters, and then 5,000+ seat theaters. So if you're like a 1,000-seat theater act, like that's what you're worth, which is, by the way, how promoters talk about you. That's the industry jargon. They'll say like, "What's he worth?" And you're like, "Ugh, that just sounds gross." So if you're worth a 1,000 seats in a market, theaters have overhead costs. So you have expenses that clubs don't have. And the reason is that clubs they don't have that expense is that for the most part they're open all the time. In other words, it's a running operation. And they're making money on their food and beverage. They have a regular staff. So their expenses are considered less. It's like built-in expenses, right? But if you're a theater, you're not open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for this and that. You're open for that show. So you bring in, like union guys to turn the lights on, to handle the stage stuff, just to get that theater open. Operational costs are much higher. Well, if you're the act, you are essentially paying for that. Mm-hmm. So just to make it up, let's say you sell $20,000 in tickets one night, and you're like, oh, that's $20,000. It's not $20,000. You have to deduct the expenses of like having that staff and having the lights on and having the box office open, having security, all those come out of that. So maybe that might be $7,500. So, now you're down to like $12,500. Well, now they're not giving you 100% of that. You have to split that with the promoter, right? So it ends up working itself down. That the way it kind of works is like, if you are on the line and you're trying to make money, you're better off doing the club, because the club, you have to do more shows, but you'll make more money. If you're selling exponentially more tickets, like if you're worth 4,000 or 5,000 tickets or more in a city, you're better off in the theater. You will make more money, but you have to do the volume of tickets. You have to. Like it only works out if you really can move those tickets.
Okay, but yeah, you have to also say what the value of my time going in.
Exactly.
First, you go do a Friday at a theater in Chicago and then a Saturday at a theater in Milwaukee, and yeah, it's only 2 shows. Yeah, so the money can ultimately be more money in less time.
The real question you have to ask yourself is, what is my time worth? Because for some people, I mean, look, it sounds ridiculous talking about thousands of dollars that you could, it's all great to be making any amount of money like that. But if you're the kind of person that's like, hey, would you rather work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and be away somewhere, especially if you have a family, right? But now you'll make thousands more, or would you be willing to work just Friday and Saturday and you'll make thousands less, but it's still a good living? That's the question that you essentially end up asking yourself, and for different people and at different times, it's usually a different answer,
Yeah, it's more. A lot of guys don't they have kind of an ego thing where they can say, "I play theaters."
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an ego thing. I think you also, it's like you're in a business where you're trying to build. So it's like, if you are doing that 1,000-seater, your goal is to move up to the next biggest theater your next time around. So it also just makes sense to build like that, to go like, I did that theater, then that theater, then that theater. And I don't know, I mean, obviously I guess that could play to your ego, but I think you just want to be, like, I would rather, we would all rather, I think, figure out what is the perfect size venue to me to play to spend the least amount of time doing the least amount of shows, but where I still capitalize on making good money and eventually just getting out of town. I don't want to spend 5 days in a city. I want to get out.
Yeah, when I saw you at the Columbus Funny Bone, and did you do Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
That was it. Yeah.
And Sunday you don't do, like, you don't really do Sundays anymore, do you?
No, I used to, but that was like a big victory, was to drop Sundays.
Oh, no question. I don't know who one of your openers was really good out there. A bigger dude. I don't know if he was local or not, but I'm trying to think who it is.
Was it Mike Cronin?
I don't know, man. I don't know why. I just thought of him. He had some good stuff. I remember. He might have been. I think he was a local guy. He was staying in. He might have like headlined Sunday when you left. I think he said like, Tom's out of here, but I'll be here tomorrow night still.
I don't remember who it was. I really don't remember who it was.
Yeah,
but doing Sundays is such a bummer, and you have to do it for years when you're coming up, because Sunday is this thing too. It's not just that. It's like, there's something about Sunday where it's like you want to be around the house and just kind of like. And what sucks is when you've done a full week, you've done like Thursday, Fridays, you've done all these shows, and you wake up Sunday and you got to sit around all day to do that one last show, and then you have to spend the night to fly out Monday, and it's like you just feel like it's that time thing. You feel like you're wasting your life, So I was always eyeballing just flying home on Sunday. And I even got to the point where I was just like booking 6 a.m. Sunday flights, like just to get the fuck home.
Yeah, that sounds almost. You could understand the loneliness or how guys get depressed. It's hanging out all day Sunday, and then even especially if they get to that Sunday show and it's like half full. That'd be a brutal feeling.
And that happens countless times.
Like who's going to a comedy show on Sunday night?
You should hear Joey Diaz talk about this. Like he is the preacher he's like, what kind of fucking loser goes out on a Sunday, you fucking mook, stay home. Like he rips on it, and he's like, but when he said it originally the first time, I was like, yeah, he's like, do you go out on Sundays? And I was like, never. Like a Sunday, like if someone was like, do you want to go like to some social, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like I definitely am a stay-at-home guy on a Sunday. So he's like, who go like Thursday night people, that's a social night. Thursday nights is like you see people go out. But like Sunday, man, I know. Clubs will try to convince you, and like I've had a couple guys say Sundays are better than Thursdays. And on the club side they'll say that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I feel like it's definitely Thursday over Sunday.
Yeah, no question. Well, Tom, I appreciate your time, man. I'm going to wrap this thing up, and we're going to be on our way. No Teeth, No Entry tour, obviously still rolling. You say your fall dates will open up soon. People can go and find them.
They go on sale June 9th, all the new dates. And I have a bunch of summer shows on tour now, or on sale now. They're all at tomsegura.com.
Bam. And your wife, Christina, is on the road working right now as we speak, right?
She's on the road. She's shooting her special June 24th. She's shooting a special in Seattle. So it's super exciting for her.
Does she know where that's what network is going to carry that?
Now she's shooting it on spec, which is how I did my first one, where like you shoot it and then you try to sell it. So she's doing that. Like she's well overdue on it, and is she's primed and ready. It's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna let her know. I want to reach out to her at some point too. I'd like to have her back on. As I said before, she loves you, man. She's
I
with
love
you.
her too. I'm with her. So wait, we didn't cover this. How about with you?
What about her?
Is she like totally? I mean, when I met her, I got the vibe that she could take you or leave you. But what is like, what's the feeling that you get from your wife?
Well, I joke with her that we have like this cat and mouse game where I guess what? So I'm always chasing her. So she'd be the mouse, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works, but
Chasing
yeah.
her.
I'm always chasing her like, hey, I'm just trying to get a hug from her or whatever, and she like feels like, hey, it feels good to be chased. I feel like, so I think it's a weird power move that she's always using to me, but ultimately, yeah, she is 100% in my corner, and yeah, it does feel good to know that. I think I spoke with Christina about this when she came on the show. It's good to know as a man that your wife has your back, and I know like my wife she would kill somebody for me, like that's how she feels.
Christina would absolutely murder someone for me, and it's almost one of those things you want like other people. You feel like, oh, I hope you get to experience this feeling, right? Like you're like it's awesome to have like a true criminal partner who's willing to rob and maim and destroy villages for you. Yeah, but I feel the same way about her, man. You know, like I adore her.
Yeah, that's how a good relationship works. I think where every once in a while I have to calm my wife down if she gets super like agitated at what somebody if she felt like someone slighted me or said something about me or was disrespecting, and she'll want to confront them. I'm like, no, we're fine. Trust me, you're good. I'm like, yeah. I get frustrated with them. I'm like, you just don't let it bother you. But in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, this is kind of cool that she has my back no matter what, even if sometimes it may be irrational and she doesn't need to go way over the line. Like, you got to back her easy now, Stallion. Pull her back a little bit. And so, yeah, I feel the same way about her.
Yeah, so she's a feisty one. She gets fired up.
She's not scared. She's not scared of competition. Yeah, we played one-on-one basketball like the first month we met, and it was like the most physical basketball game of my life. She was trying to box me out and getting pissed.
But how turned on were you by that?
Well, it was cool. Like, I was like, this is really weird. I don't even know how to feel right now. When I'm like, and then I just got mad and I told her, I started draining threes right in her eye, bam, killing it. And then she'd get more distraught and try to drive to the hole on me. And then she just fouled the hell out of me. And I'm like, this is garbage. You're fouling me all day long. And she's like pissed. And I realized like we can't play board games together or anything because she gets super competitive.
So she's really competitive.
Yeah, she played field hockey and pitched underhand softball in high school. Like, so she's athletic too. But she just didn't want to do that in college. She could have played one of those sports in college, but she's definitely competitive.
You're going to have 4 super athletes for sure, man.
We're going to have to talk them off the ledge when they're crying when a kid hits a homer off of them.
I didn't get to ask you this. So earlier or last season, you played with the Falcons for a few weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Yeah.
3 weeks. Good experience, right? You said
awesome. It was great.
Now, when you're watching the Super Bowl, they're up for dramatically, and we see the not arguably, but the greatest Super Bowl upset ever. Were you like, fuck you guys, fucking idiots?
Honestly, I never. Well, it was weird. It was a weird feeling throughout that because I got a full like vested season out of it. Like. By being there, I wouldn't say I was mad at them because I got to know some of them over the 3.5 weeks basically I was there.
And you understand the business obviously of this crazy league you were in.
Oh yeah, man. Like I felt like I had like empathy for them, sympathy a little bit, where I was like, man, I can't imagine what it feels like to be in their shoes right now. Not only to lose the Super Bowl, but to lose the way they did.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they have the right guys that they'll be back, but man, I was like, that's absolute agony. Devastation. Like, I can't imagine.
Yeah. I've never seen anything. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I tuned out of that game.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, this is a waste of time. I mean, like, I wasn't watching it anymore. And then, when I go, I'm just gonna watch one drive before I turn it off. Mm-hmm. And the drive that I watched was the first score where they went for 2 and got it. So I was like, because I was like, oh, if they don't score right now, there's definitely no chance. So I was like, all right, I'll watch this bullshit. And they scored, and they went for 2 and they got it. And I was like, well, I mean, they still got to do a ton of shit. But I watched from then on. I was like, no way. This is the craziest game I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it didn't even seem real. But I thought about you like, oh man, like you would have had they would have given you a ring, right? Because you were on the team.
No, I don't think so.
Does it work like that?
I don't know. No, people asked me that same thing. No, I don't. They're awesome guys that I wouldn't have been shocked if the Atlanta.
But they're not obligated to?
No, I don't think they're obligated to in any way. No.
But like you're on the team for any period and they win a Super Bowl, you're not considered a contributor to that team?
I mean, I think it depends. I think it goes team by team. I think it really does.
It's selective. They can say like,
yeah, they choose who gets rings. Like in Green Bay, they chose like
Arthur Blank would have sent you a ring, dude, for sure. He gave the guy that fucking opens the front door to the stadium a ring. I mean, he would fucking definitely send.
You're right. He flew like every person that works for the Falcons to the Super Bowl on his own dime. So yeah.
He flew the fucking stadium staff and the parking lot attendants out there. So yeah, he sent a ring.
Yeah. So do I get
He might send you a ring on the next one.
Do I get an NFC Championship ring then? Is that what I get now? Maybe.
You definitely get it. Are you enjoying broadcasting?
Yeah, man. I love it. I do a lot of stuff on Sirius and hopefully do some games next year.
Did you do the Big Ten games last year?
No, I did. I only did one. I did one game for Fox. I did a Stanford Oklahoma State game for them up in the booth.
Is it nerve-wracking?
Yeah, I love the whole process of like, yeah, you prepare throughout. You were talking about like preparation, like the whole week, man. I was like, you're in on conference calls. You meet with the coaches when you get to the city. All this stuff. You get your boards together so you know all the players. You watch film on what they've done earlier that year.
And you have to you got to have those players who you didn't know basically have to become like off the tip of your tongue. Like you talk about them like you've been watching them for. That's what every time I watch a game, the guys are talking about them like they know every player well, but they really know them from that week.
Oh yeah, you have to prep. That's the biggest thing. You can tell guys that have tried to do it and they fail early on, especially. You learn like if you don't prep and you don't do like the work that it takes, and that's the good thing about it. Why I definitely love it because I enjoy that whole prep work of watching it and getting to know the guys a little bit. So then when you're there, it's fun, man. It's fun being in the booth and being in like the game atmosphere. I did an audition game for Fox before that, a USC game early in the year, and I called it just for Fox's people. And it was just fun being there, man. It's cool to try to figure out what the teams are doing and talk about it and try to actually sound somewhat intelligent and just to try to – sometimes you just have to simplify what's happening. People definitely like to complicate it way too much. So if you just try to simplify what the offense was trying to do to the defense or vice versa. That's
what I enjoy from a good analyst is somebody who's breaking down for me something that is, somewhat complicated. And they're saying like, oh, when they know like immediately like, so here's what happened. Like, I mean, I think Herb Street's fucking amazing at it. And he goes, he bit on the safety bit on this right here, and he shows you like he stepped forward, that opened up this gap, then this guy went over the middle, he read the play, and it's like it happens in like a millisecond. It seems like the breakdown of what happened. But as a guy at home, I'm like, oh, that is what happened right there. Like. You feel like you understand the play now,
Yeah, he's great, man. Kirk is awesome. The great ones are able to do that. So, yeah, hopefully I'll be doing some games that you may be watching next year.
Dude, that's fucking awesome. You better give me a shout out. You better throw in a bird is fat.
That will be the key, man. Then I know. Okay.
And do they give you tidbits? Like, 'cause sometimes you're watching the game and they'll be like, and he's known to really enjoy Slurpees. And he won't have any orange ones, though. He sticks to his grape flavors. And you're like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, those are all the little things that you learn about through talking to the coaches and players leading up to the week to where if the game's a blowout, the game really sucks, you have to fill time. And so that's when you'll hear those guys start saying that.
Yeah, it's just like the dumbest like little tidbits.
That's where I could probably work something about Bert. They say this player, the game's like a 60-0 blowout. Well, the backup quarterback says he gets inspiration from a comedian named Bert Kreischer who loves to take his shirt off on stage. And then the next play. How about that?
Or a great one would be like he dropped 50 pounds in the off season. And the coaches were really impressed with his dedication. He started taking his diet seriously. He didn't want to turn into a Bert Kreischer, so he look at him. Look how lean he is now. And then your color guy or your play-by-play guy will be like, okay.
Yeah, all right. I don't know what, and then I'm gonna have to do that, Tom. Let's do it, and then we'll get someone to split screen the game and this exact talk we're having right now.
That'd be awesome, man.
We'll do it. All right, Tom. Thanks a lot, man. Really, really appreciate your time, and we will.
Thanks for having me again.
We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, buddy.
All right.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.